It's from them. From the computer. No, no. That's picking up the computer. This one's picking up the phone. الكاميرا دي بياخد الصوت من اللابتوب. الكاميرا دي بياخد الصوت من
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone had a good breakfast and is refreshed. This talk is going to be a bit longer, so just kind of giving you like a heads up, because it's so much to say. I really want you to lock in and focus in with me for the time we're going to spend, and if you take notes, take notes. If you have questions along the way, write them down, because I have a lot of questions. So it's a topic that needs to be discussed with us as a church. If we don't get over this topic, we can't move forward as a church into evangelism. So please, feel free, don't be shy. If you have questions or thoughts or experiences, I think we can learn from one another. So this is not just about me sharing with you. I want to hear from you, and we have to hear from each other. Okay, so the topic today is about separating faith and culture, which is very hard. Right off the bat, we need to understand this verse. Galatians 3:28 says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." I think we need to understand this verse. We need to live this verse. There's not different. We're all together. Yeah, there's different cultures. We have American culture, Egyptian culture. Where I'm coming from, there's African culture, and there's cultures all over the world. And if we as a mission don't understand that, hey, there's differences, but we're all one. What's it say at the end? But we're all one in Christ Jesus. That has to be the baseline of our conversation. If we don't understand this as part of our conversation, then we can't go forward. We never want to make any group in the church feel rejected. And this is the problem we're having nowadays. When there's different cultures, everyone is protecting their own culture, and the other cultures feel rejected. Like it or not, that's what's happening. So we never want any culture to feel rejected. It's beautiful that you love your culture, and that we love our culture. But we want to let culture not be a divider, but something that we can say we're one in Christ. Now here's the thing. I'm going to discuss this today. These are the 3 things we're going to discuss today. I'm going to put them all out there. And these are 3 things we're going to get into. Okay? Number 1, we need to understand that the church is responsible for learning and preserving the faith. You notice I said faith, not culture. Okay? Number 1, and I'm going to go through each one of these in detail, and like I said, it's important for learning and preserving the faith. At first I said preserving the faith, but I learned something, that not many of us understand our faith. So I would say learn and preserve faith. We're responsible for that as a church, as we're going into evangelism. Number 2, we're here to celebrate all cultures, not just our own. Okay, I'm going to get into that too. It's okay to love your own culture, but it's even better to celebrate all cultures that are in the church. And number 3, where most of the conversation today will be in number 3. This is a very, very hard one. Adapting to the host culture in your area. What is host culture? Host culture is the culture you're moving into. Right? Like we're here in America. This is the host culture. I'm from Zambia. That's the host culture. Wherever we took our faith and our church to, that's the host culture. Does that make sense? You have your own culture, then you have the host culture. Sometimes the same. If you're born and raised in America, then your own culture is the same as the host culture. But sometimes it's not like that. So we need to adapt to the host culture in your area. This is mission work right here. This is the event. So learn and preserve the faith. I'm going to talk about that. celebrate all the cultures. And number 3, which is probably most of our conversation today, is adapt to the host culture that you're living in, that you moved to. And at the end, the goal is to create a Christian, Orthodox culture in the church. The goal is to create a Christian, Orthodox culture. And sometimes it gets lost. Let's go to number 1. Okay? First one. Learn and preserve the faith. Learn and preserve the faith. Now there's 2 extremes here. And I'm going to touch on number 1 and 2 very shortly, but I want you to pay attention. Learn and preserve the faith. Here's the problem. We go to 2 extremes. One is we water down the Orthodox faith. We water it down. We try to make it so watered down that we lost the faith completely. We didn't learn or preserve the faith. This is one extreme, which we can't do in our church, because our church is so beautiful. The other extreme is what? Is that we take our faith and we shove it down people's throats, and we say, if you don't do that, you're no good. There's 2 extremes. Like it's okay to be proud of being an Orthodox Christian. You should preserve the faith that we have. But we can't take 2 extremes. 2 Thessalonians 2:15, as you know, it's therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which you were taught, whether by word or our epistle. Preserve the faith. Stand fast for the faith. It's a beautiful faith. But don't water it down. And don't feel, like, here's the thing. We make people feel bad. We think we're defenders of the faith. Right? We're St. Cyril or St. Athanasius. We feel we have to defend our faith. That's fine. But don't shove it down someone's throat. Don't make them feel bad. Okay, so number 1 is very important. Learn and preserve the Orthodox faith. Don't water it down, and don't make people feel bad if they don't understand or they don't know it or they're not practicing something. If you do that, we'll be on the right track. Is that good? So number 1 is learn and preserve the faith. I always love the verse from Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. It's not up here, but you can write down the verse. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. Verse 6. Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer each one. Take hold of our beautiful Orthodox faith and share it with people. Encourage people to know it. But don't make them feel bad. And you don't have to water it down. We don't have to make it so easy to know like that and it's no longer an Orthodox faith. That's number 1. And like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time. Does that make sense? So we're responsible, let's say it together, to what? To learn, all together, to learn and preserve. Okay, that's number 1. Think about that. If you have any questions, we'll come back to it. Number 2. Number 2 is celebrating all cultures as one. Like I said, the verse earlier there is important for us to see. But I want to say something, by the way. If we look carefully for the 12 disciples of our Lord Jesus Christ, did you know that they had different cultures? Like, we know that they have different professions. Some are tax collectors, some are fishermen. Our Lord was a carpenter. And then you have something even more specific. Did you know Matthew, the tax collector, he was more for the government. But you know Simon the Zealot, he was kind of against the government. But somehow they ate together, they broke bread together, and they became one. So we can have differences of opinions, we can have different cultures, but we can celebrate and support one another. It's okay to celebrate all cultures. I'll give you some examples. Okay? Let me see if it's up here. Okay, this is a celebration in Zambia on Independence Day. Okay? So, an example of celebrating all cultures is like whatever the celebrations or the holidays in Zambia, we take advantage of them. This is Independence Day, October 24th. Okay? So, we all dress in the green and black and orange. We have different celebrations together. And because you don't do this here, right? Because you don't have October 24th, you have July 4, right? So this is us saying we're going into a place And we're celebrating with the land, with the people of that land, their culture. If it's Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, whatever day. And we support them. You can see I'm even wearing, and people say, what are you doing? No, it's, look, I want people in Zambia to know that I'm with them on their day. I celebrate with you your culture. Okay? I celebrate with you your culture. Okay? And this is what's happening in our churches in Zambia, which is really nice, is that we all celebrate different cultures. Even you'll find, I think this video is coming up next. Let's see if we can. This is the Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Zambian, and the Egyptians are there, and we're all celebrating a feast together. Okay? But you can see that whoever's singing, the other group is very happy for them. But it's, oh, it's your song, leave it for you. No. Everyone is joining together. This is one of the Ethiopian songs. And even, by the way, which is amazing, is that the Zambians know the words to the song. And they're singing the words to the song. This is celebrating culture. It's not, oh, your culture's like that, you finish your song and then we'll come up next. No, we're all together. Okay? I know you guys want to see more of that, but we'll wait. So, look. Number one is learn and preserve your faith. Thank you. Number two is celebrate all cultures. If in your church you have a Chinese culture, an Egyptian culture, an American culture, celebrate all of them. There's no one against the other. We're all together as one. Remember the verse. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither slave nor free. There's neither male nor female. You're all one in Christ Jesus. Galatians 3:28. We're all one. So now, what is your homework to do here is that you have to go back to your home and say, hey, do we celebrate Memorial Day, Veterans Day? Do we highlight these holidays in this country? Look, this is the host country. This is the host culture, the American culture. You have to know everything about the host culture. You need to celebrate. You have to highlight it. If you're from Canada, same thing. I don't know what the holidays in Canada are, but you can go through and you can go through and do the same thing. See, we do the same thing. Whenever there is something important in Zambia, we highlight it. We celebrate it together. And it makes them feel good. It makes them feel that we're one with them. We're not just going to preach to them, we're going to be one with them. So think about that for your churches. Learn and preserve the faith. Celebrate all cultures. Okay? Now we'll go to number 3. Any questions so far? Any thoughts so far? Those are the two easy ones. Not easy, but number 3 is the hardest one. Alright, let's move on. Adapting to the host culture you live in. Now let me just say this before you get really upset and worried. When we say adapting to the host culture you live in, we don't mean adapting to the negative things about the host culture you live in. Is that okay? Yeah. Because there's a lot. But we need to understand the culture we live in, and we have to be ready to adapt to the good points. Okay? Just keep that. I'm going to talk about that again later on. If we're really on a mission, we're going into the host culture, learning the language, learning the values, learning their views, learning their foods, learning the clothing, learning the sports, learning their style, wherever we go. Okay? What gets in the way of adapting to the culture is we are resistant because it's not our culture. It's not our own culture. Sometimes we judge the culture of where we go as foolishness. And that may be right in some sense. But we have to learn the good points of that culture. And ask yourself this question: is your church really adapting to the culture of the host place that you're in? Canada, UK, here, wherever. Let me give you some steps to help understand how to go through that, okay? I'm going to give you steps and things, and just pay attention, write down, and we're going to go through all that. So, the first thing in steps to adapting host culture is you need to know your own culture. You need to know, here's what I mean by that. Each one of us has been raised probably in different schools, different families, different situations. And each one of us, by the way, has your own culture. Depending on where you're raised and how you were raised and who you were raised from, which school you went to, what city you lived in, right? Even in America, city to city, there's different cultures, right? The South is different definitely than the North, right? So so depending on that, you should figure out, what's your culture? What do you believe in? If you don't know this, then you won't know how to adapt and deal with other people. You probably say, oh, I'm American, or I'm American Egyptian, but it goes deeper than that. Even in Egypt, there's different cultures, right? So know who you are, what is really your culture, and that's going to be the beginning steps how to adapt nicely into the culture you're in. Number 2, celebrate the beauty of God's creation. What I want to say is this. As I travel different places in Africa and sometimes around the world, and some of you have done the same, isn't different countries have their beauty? Isn't it amazing to see, like, for example, I can talk about Zambia for a long time. The Zambian culture and the Zambian people, how peaceful, how gentle, how loving they are. It's beautiful. We have to recognize God's beauty in His creation and in His culture. Sometimes art or music or food, if you go from place to place, there's something unique in that. Learn it, understand it, right? And just recognize how beautiful God's creation is. Because you know why I say number 2? Because usually we go to, that's not what I do, and we take a negative view on things. No, look at the beautiful side of every culture there. There's a beautiful side to American culture, Egyptian culture, African culture, Chinese culture, and so there's a beautiful side to every culture and God's beautiful creation to it. Look for that. So if you want to adapt to a place, you need to know your own culture. Number 2, you got to recognize what's God's beauty in every culture. Number 3, observe and imitate behaviors. Okay, I'm gonna need Michael, come up here. We're gonna have to. He's from Zambia. Let's give Michael a big hand. Okay. So this one is observing and imitate behavior. So going to Zambia, we shake hands differently than America. You remember how we shake hands there? Okay. So we go like this, and we go like this, and go like this. You get that? Turn to someone and do the same thing. You go up, down, like that. All right, turn to someone next. I know, just a little bit. You have to learn because you're going to come to Zambia soon. You go like this. You come in, up, and down, like that. Okay? We got an extra one, little chest pump. You know? All right? Now, if you go to Zambia and you just shake their hand like that, it'll be like funny, right? You're like, what's happening? And there's another. Let me take off my hat to this one. There's another culture that they actually do headbutts. I don't know if you've seen that before. So we're gonna headbutt 3 times here. So it's like that. The first time it happened to me, I was like, this is painful. You know? But I had to know, once I learned it, the next time I went up, I was like, you know. So you have to. Okay, thanks, Mike. If you stay longer, I might headbutt you again. So it's important for us to observe and imitate the behaviors of the place you go to. Of course, here in America, we have the, kind of like we did at the end there, different kinds of shakes. So, look, it's not bad that we learn these things. Some cultures, they kiss on both cheeks. Sometimes they do 3 times, sometimes 2 times. So, the more we observe and imitate, the more people will trust you for evangelism. Did you ever think about that? If you go there and say, no, I'm going to shake my hand like that to you, they'll say, this guy doesn't want to be with us. Okay, so we have to know the people that we're going to. We have to know their situation. We have to observe. Even sometimes, some cultures, body language is very important. The dress, right? I'll give you another example. In Zambia, something that I learned over time is that in the morning, they like conversation before we get down to business. Americans, what do we like? Get down to business. So there's a father there, Father Bishoy, a lovely father. He always reminds me of this. I go there and I say, good morning quickly, and I say, we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 today. He's like, no. He sits down, how was your day? How's Mama Dahlia? That's what they call her, Mama Dahlia. How are the kids? And I'm like, can we get down to business? In my heart, I'm like, everything is fine. And then, but you have to learn where you're going, and they love that. If I want to be one with the fathers in Zambia, I need to observe and imitate their behavior. I need to take my time. I need to listen to them. I need to talk to them. I need to have a good morning conversation. Okay? So that's just a quick example. Even here's another thing. I don't know if you've seen this before. Sometimes American culture is very sarcastic. Okay? Which I didn't realize about myself until I went to Zambia. So sometimes I'm there saying sarcastic answer, and I find the deacons and the fathers just staring at me like that. And I'm laughing. I think it's funny. And they're like, so I said, oops, okay, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. So I think even sarcasm, some cultures are very sarcastic, like the American culture is very sarcastic. But African culture, they don't know what, they take it, what your word is your word. Whatever you're saying, they take it literally. So we can't read into the words, right? So you need to go into if you want to adapt to a place, you need to understand your own culture, see the beauty of God's creation in that culture, the host country, observe and imitate language, food, behavior, and learn from it. The last story I'll tell you about observing. One time, there's a father there named Father Mark. We were going to a deep village place in Zambia to meet the chief. Okay, when you meet the chief, he gives you land for the church. So one time, it was new in my time in Zambia, I was still early in my priesthood, early in Zambia. He said, we're going to the chief, and we drove 17 hours to a deep bush area to ask for land. So we get to the gate. Like imagine this whole room is the house of the chief. Of course, it's much bigger, and this is the gate. So of course, Father Mark was with me, and I went in and I started walking towards the gate, and he said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, what? What's wrong with him? You can't walk into the chief's place. I said, why? We want to ask him for land. He said, no, that's not how you enter the chief's place. I said, how do you enter then? If I can't go in the gate, how can I see the chief? He's over there, I see the chief. He said, no, this is what you do. You come into the gate, and you bow down, and the chief is over there, and you clap. Let me just put this down. And you clap like this. And you clap, and the chief is over there. So why don't we, and you have the whole way, you have to humble yourself. You have to humble yourself all the way to the chief. And it's far away. So I found myself looking at Father Mark, and he's doing that, and I said, okay, let me do what he's doing. So I'm over there doing that, and we got all the way to the chief, right in front of his legs. We bowed down before him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we just said, we respect you, chief. And I was like, and I didn't know that. I was just going to walk up to him and say, hey, how are you doing, chief? I need some land. That's what any one of us would have done, right? So, no, we have to observe and imitate the behavior of land. So this is something that we need to do everywhere. It's really hard here because America has like a melting pot of culture. So many different cultures. And but we still need to learn it. We need to learn what's the sports. Some people are like, when you say American football or basketball, they have no idea. I think we need to learn these things so we can connect with you. And they can connect with us. And we're not hurting the faith. We talked about that already. We're preserving and we learn and we preserve the faith. We celebrate all cultures, but now when you adapt, adapting is the hardest thing. Because our churches look weird, right? You go into our church, we have Egyptian culture and you have American culture. And sometimes father and son are way different. They don't understand each other. Sometimes the generational gap and the culture difference is affecting our churches. And there becomes a division. What we need to do is remove that division and say, no, number 8, we need to celebrate this culture. We need to celebrate this culture. And the culture that we need to adapt to, the good part of it is the American culture, or the British culture, or the Canadian culture, or whatever place. For me, it's the Zambian African culture, right? So what you learn here, this is good for any kind of mission work, even here. If you're going to any type of place in the world and you want to do mission, you need those 3 things, right? Any questions so far? Okay. Well, if you have some, write it down and we'll get to it. Let's go to number 4. This is a long talk, so I don't want to... Learn the things you shouldn't do. Learn the things you shouldn't do. Every culture has things that you shouldn't do. One thing in Africa, by the way, sorry, John will give you the North American culture talk next. So I'm just giving you the general, okay? So I'm a little bit disconnected with some of the culture here, but at the same time, I'm just going to keep giving you examples of Africa, and welcome to come and join in this culture we have. So, what you shouldn't do in Africa, especially if you're a girl, you need to have a skirt, or what they call it is a shitenge, which is like a skirt. You wrap, and you wrap yourself. If you're going to go visit someone's house, you have to make sure you have this kind of wrap. It's like a big cloth, and you wrap yourself. I think those who've gone to Africa know it. And then you have to cover your hair with like a cloth, and you go in. And men, you can't wear shorts. A little bit disrespectful for them when you go visit. So you wear like pants, trousers, right? So it's their culture, right? So you should also learn the things you shouldn't do in the culture that you're hearing. Okay? And there's many examples, but for sake of time, I want you to think about that. Sometimes in this area, we need to learn. Sometimes it's in some cultures you can't smile to certain people. In some cultures you need to smile, right? Some cultures you need to just stare straight. You know, when someone is there, if you smile at someone in one of the cities in America, they might beat you up, right? You say, "Hey, what's up?" And like you smile, you don't know them. Okay? But in the South, maybe it's more friendly, right? I'm not going to say the other cities that are not friendly, but there's some here and some there. But you have to learn. You just have to learn it. Okay? So we need to observe and imitate behavior. We need to learn the things you shouldn't do. Maybe there's some things you shouldn't do. And hopefully Father John will give us more about the North American example. Okay? Number 5. Ask good questions. Ask good questions. Don't just assume you know everything. Ask. Can we do it this way? Can we do it that way? Can I be honest with you? Moving to Zambia 12 years ago, I had to learn 3 cultures. And you probably won't believe what's 3. The Zambian culture, the Ethio-Eritrean culture, and believe it or not, the Egyptian cultures. We have a lot of Egyptians there, and I'm more Americanized. And when I moved there, we're living next to my brothers and sisters, the Egyptian community. It's very beautiful. But I had to ask a lot of questions. I know it probably sounds crazy. My parents are Egyptian. But I never lived really in a community like that, so close. Church, work, service, everything, neighbor. So I had to learn the Zambian culture, the Ethiopian culture, and the Egyptian culture. So many times, I'm a very private person. And my house is kind of like my sanctuary, right? But I didn't realize the Egyptian culture needs more openness and freedom, and every occasion and every event need to visit them, which is important. And it came to the point when the Egyptian community in my first year or 2 said the words, "You're too American." I said, "What do you mean?" "I am American." I said, "You're too American." And then they explained to me. I started asking questions, and I fixed myself. I'm telling you the truth, I adjusted my way with them. And if I didn't do that, I would repel them. The Ethio-Eritrean community, I realized how they respect the church so much. Overly. So I had to know that I can't just, we respect the church, but they take it to another stage of respect. So I had to learn that and understand that when I go into their house, it's important. And of course, I told you about. So I was asking a lot of questions. It's important. Look, if you really care about evangelism, you'll go through these things. And you'll get to the point where you're asking questions. It's okay. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. You have to ask questions so you can learn. And you can grow. And you can adapt. Okay? Seek to learn and grow. The key word is seek. Here's the problem. We spend too much time criticizing instead of learning. Is that true or not? We criticize people around us for their behavior, their culture, their situation. We don't realize we're criticizing their culture. Oh, these young ones are so and so. No. Seek to learn and grow. Like I said earlier, I'm not asking us to cross any boundary of spirituality or morality. I don't want us to break our faith or to break our... We're not crossing over and doing something wrong. But we're seeking to learn and grow. If you're not seeking, then we can't go from here. If you have the mindset to be a learner, you're going to be fine. If you have humility to learn other culture that you're living in, you're going to be fine. But if you insist to criticize the culture, then we're never going to love the culture. We're not going to love the people in the culture. Number 7, proclaim the gospel and faith clearly. I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit. Know your audience. Know how to give them a message according to their way. Like if I go to Zambia and proclaim the gospel in a very theological way, might lose them. Gotta start simply. Gotta build it up. I gotta know my audience. And that's what takes us to number 8, which is it's a very, very important. Contextualize the gospel. Contextualize means you're communicating the message of God in the environment that you're in. The context that you're in. Does that make sense? This is a very important word for mission and evangelism. If you understand any word, remember this word, contextualize. If you're taking the faith and taking the gospel and taking it to the land where you are right now, you need to have this. You need to know the circumstances around you. You need to know the conditions around you. You need to know the environment and the people and their culture, and you know how to deliver the message in that environment. Okay? Like I said, these are the things that will build bridges, not barriers. I'll give you an example. This happened in Zambia. We're talking about Jesus says, I am the bread of life. You know that verse in the Bible. I am the bread of life. One day I was sharing with a group of Zambians, and I said, I am the Nshima of life. Nshima is the bread, it's the bread for the Zambians. And I was sharing for like 15 minutes before that about and people falling asleep. And then when I said, I'm the Shema of life, they woke up. Honestly, they woke up and said, what? I said, as much as you love Shema, that's how much we need our Lord. He's the bread of life. He's the Shema of life. That's how much we hunger for Him. And I went on and on. At that point, I had them. Contextualize means you know that you have to know the people you're talking to. You have to know the culture you're living in. You want to adapt to the host culture here or wherever you're from. You need to be able to contextualize, take the message, and deliver it to the people according to their way, not your way. You have to meet them where they are. Does that make sense? If that's not happening, we might be trying to take our culture we learned, which is not bad, maybe the Egyptian culture, and maybe we're trying to take it to the North American culture. We may be failing. We'll be losing our youth. We may be losing members. We have to be careful. Okay? I don't have all the answers. I'm just going to share what I learned, and you take it and apply it as you see fit. Here's the thing. The world is becoming a global mission. You know what that means? That the world is becoming so close together with social media, and all. It's becoming one city. The city is the world. It's not like before. Like our church has to be able to figure out how to survive and bring new people in this world mission, this global mission. It's not like before. You go to, like, it's grown. And if we don't figure out how to meet people where they are, we'll lose them. If we don't learn how to contextualize. Now here's what you might be seeing in your church. You might be seeing a young person way different than an older person. If you have children, maybe your children are going to grow up way different than you. And if you insist on your own culture, you might lose them. And I've seen that in our churches here in North America. We're losing our children. Children losing parents, parents losing children. It's just, we have to be careful if we don't contextualize. The world is now becoming one. We need to learn how, can our church survive in any city in the world? Can we plant our church in any city in the world and be able to survive? Yes, if we can follow some of these things. No, if we can insist on our own way. I'm not talking about faith. We're going to keep our faith. Please don't get panicked. Some people panic when I speak to them about this. Don't panic. We're preserving the Orthodox faith. This is number 1. We celebrate the different unique cultures. That was number 2. But number 3 has to happen if you want to win people. If you want to evangelize North America, you got to start. And I'm going to explain this in so many ways today. Because I want your patience and I want your energy to be here. Okay? So, examples of what I'm talking about. You might know this guy very well. You might know this person. From 1 Corinthians 9, 19 to 23. Follow along with me. This person is the best at contextualizing. Remember, contextualize is going into a place in the context of where you are and able to deliver the message of God to that area. Listen to this. Follow with me. For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a slave to all. Why? Why did you do that? That I might win the more. Get it? That's what we need to be doing. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. St. Paul understood it. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law. Remember, we don't let the immoral things come in. And that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law, I became as an outside the law, not being without law towards God. Remember, it says, not being without law towards God. So I'm not letting the environment affect me. St. Paul is going to win people, but not letting the environment affect him. You got that? That's what we need to do. Not being without law towards God, under the law, under Christ, I might win those outside. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I become all things to all men, that I might by all means to save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I might share its blessings. This is the best example of evangelism and contextualizing, going into a place, seeking to reach Jews and Gentiles. St. Paul incarnates himself into the people to win many without being affected by them. But he understood he couldn't reach them. Now what we may be doing is opposite. We may be just saying, this is how it is. This is our way. Here's the problem. Let me say it clear. We might be mixing culture with faith. We might be just saying, here's the Orthodox, Coptic Orthodox faith, but we put culture in there also. I think that's the mistake we're making. And we get upset, no, this is the way my church did it. But I understand. That's important. And we celebrate that in you. And we should celebrate. We shouldn't be anti that, we should also support that person. But I think we need to learn wherever we go. You want to have true mission in North America? Or true mission in any mission field around the world? We need to do what St. Paul did here. He did whatever it took to save some. He became like them, but not being affected by them. Okay? That makes sense? Now, I'm going to ask you some tough questions, and maybe I don't have the answers. Okay? But I want you to think. Should Zambians and Africans have the same complete service as North America? Okay? I'm just going to ask the question. I'm not going to give any answers. You guys will. Okay? But I think whoever said that answer, I think they're okay. I'm with you. Should. Now, don't be upset. I'm going to ask for forgiveness from now from the grace and the fathers. Should the instruments be the same? Like, should we, because we play the cymbals and triangles, should we insist that will be all over the world? I don't know. But some places in Africa, they use drums. I don't know. What I'm saying is, we're not affecting the faith. And this is the most important thing. We mix culture with faith. Now, I love the cymbals and triangles. I love a lot of things. But I'm saying, if I'm a missionary, and I want to do evangelism, and you're a missionary, and you want to do evangelism, we need to have these conversations. We need to stop being quiet. We need to have forums and discussions and these conferences to open up these conversations. What should it be? How can we be? What should we do? Okay? I heard, maybe I'm wrong, in one of the churches in North America who serves the poor, they do a condensed liturgy, 1 hour. It's for the poor. Like it's one of the churches in North America, the Jewish church, just for the poor of America. I think that's great. I think that they figured out how to contextualize and reach the people. And I'm sure bishops have agreed to that. So I love that. Look, here's the thing. We as an Orthodox church, a Coptic Orthodox church, need to sit down more together and discuss these things. And not be offended. If someone has ideas, open the door. Let's discuss it. Let's hear from each other. Bishops and priests and servants should be sitting together discussing these things. We can't have things just happening on its own. We should talk about it together. If we want to reach the people in North America and the rest of the world, the global mission, the global city, we're going to have to figure out how to do this. St. Paul figured it out early. We need to work on that. Should Muslims be told about Christ and the Trinity in our way or a way that can meet them? We have to think about how to reach other religions. We need to figure out how to reach other denominations if they're confused about something. So these are the things. I can go on and on, but I'm going to stop. We're going to go on to the next section now. Okay? So these are kind of the 8 things. Okay? Any thoughts or questions? I know you probably want to fight me by now. So, but think about it, and I'm going to drill down again and again for another 20 minutes. I know you, but just stay with me. Okay? Let me go on again. I want to say something. I want to say the same thing, but I want to say it in a different way. These 3 things we need to figure out. There's 3 ways we can go about adapting to the culture. 1, isolation, right? Isolation. That means the church, our Coptic church, is isolated from everything outside. And we have no idea what's happening out there. We're just isolated. So no, we need to protect ourselves. This is one way to be living in a culture. There's a second way. Domination. Domination is what? Is the church is lashing out against culture in that area. We're saying the church, the world is like that, and the government's doing that, and we're lashing out. And we're criticizing, we're judging. Number 3 is incarnational, which is probably the method that we need to do, which is that we plant ourselves in the community. We try to do whatever it takes to learn the culture, to be like them, and to save some without being affected. And we're going to talk about that more. These kind of 3 main ways. Isolation, domination, saying, oh, this is rubbish out there, this is trash, this is foolish. And we judge and we criticize. I'm going to talk about that again. And incarnation, we plant ourselves. Like we have the American Orthodox churches. I saw some of the fathers and some of the servants. You're planting yourselves in Orlando and Miami and where else is there? I know Atlanta, Father Nathaniel, and there's so many churches. Like, which one of these methods will win the people? Isolate, go ahead. You're by yourself. That's fine. That will not win anyone. Domination, the people outside who come into the church will feel judged and criticized as soon as they enter our church. And incarnation, we're there to do what Christ did. He was incarnate. We need to incarnate ourselves into the community. Let me say it another way. If we remember the story of fishers of men in Luke 5 or Mark 4, or Matthew 4, sorry, the churches who isolate themselves from the culture, they're not fishing at all. The churches that are doing domination, lashing out, are fishing with dynamite, blowing up the people around them. And of course, the last one, the incarnational, is you're using the right bait and tackle to fish for the fishers of men, right? You're fishers of men. I don't know. I'm just praying here. I just want to stop and say, we need to pray. Where are we in this? Are we isolating? Are we dominating? Or we are incarnating ourselves? We need to pray. With over 2 billion people still needing to know about God, from Asia to Africa to North America to Europe, from young troubled teenagers to young professionals, how many people that you probably know are disconnected from God? I know so many. How many people in our churches are disconnected from the church and from God? Many. How many people in the world, when you see them, what they're doing, how many are disconnected? If we don't preserve our faith, celebrate the cultures, and adapt to the host culture, we're going to lose many more. Sorry to say that. We're going to lose many more. When our children grow up, we might lose them. We need to learn, and learn fast. Moving on. Here's a better explanation. Isolation takes place when the church is so far removed from culture that it can no longer communicate the good news in effective ways. Domination occurs as the church lashes out harshly, right, as the evil aspects of the culture, and incarnation is the best approach, which is making disciples and being fishers of men. Okay, so we kind of said that already. Let's move on. Now here's a question you're probably asking yourself, right? This is probably a really important question for most of us who are worried about what I'm just saying. You're worried about, okay, Abuna, you said this, we're moving into the place with the culture. How to adapt to the host culture without losing your morals, right? I want to give you, look, as I said yesterday, the culture here in North America is changing so fast for the worse. It's going fast. Okay, like I said, I've been away for 12 years, but every time I come, I said you can see a drastic difference. You know when you see a child grow, but you only see them once a year, right? When you see them once a year, like last year I saw them like this year I saw them like that, and it just, that's how I feel when I come back to North America. I just feel like it's getting out of control. As it's changing so fast, we have to be ready for that. Not be afraid of it, but just be ready for it. Okay? You know, Christianity now in North America is falling down completely. Society is becoming very secular, right? It's like, some people call it post-Christian, so it's no longer Christian. What do we do in this kind of society? How do we deal with it? How do we, like, here's a question that we need to ask ourselves. How do we impact the society without being impacted? That's what it's saying here. How do we impact without being impacted? How do we help our children to be living in a society without being hurt by it? So let me go through. By the way, I want you to, like, sorry that this session is long, but I felt like, to be honest with you, I can spend 3 or 4 hours and not even scratch the surface. And I'm just sorry to say that. I think we're way behind in this. I'm way behind in understanding this. So what I'm sharing with you, I'm learning. Okay? So if you want to be able to do that, number one is, if you want to, like, if here, I'm going to give you 5 ways, and some of them are wrong ways. Okay? So at the end of each way, it might be, okay, well, that way is wrong. So one way we can do it, okay, is we can just be oblivious to the host culture. What does that mean? It means the Coptic Church can be in a suit, or in Nairobi, or in Alexandria, or here in Titusville, or in Zant, wherever. And it can be the same exact everything. You can't tell the difference. If you walk into a church in Nairobi, or Titusville, or Upper Egypt, if it looks the same, we have a problem. Okay? But if it was the same liturgy, if it looks the same, we have a problem. Yes, we have the same liturgy, but it should be different language. The sermons should be different. Like in Zambia, if you talk like this, if the monotonous tone in Zambia, everyone will be dead asleep. You have to kind of like, hey, and you have to wake them up and repeat the same thing over and over again. So, like, I have to know, I can be oblivious and say, no, it's going to be like that. In every place we go, we're going to plant our church the same way. That's one way, but that's a fail. Okay? That's a fail. Oblivious means actually you don't even know what's going on around you. It's a bit different. Like, you don't know what's happening around you, and you're kind of living in a bubble. And some of our churches are doing that. Number 2, is you can hide. That's different than being oblivious. Oblivious, you have no idea. Number 2, you know what's out there, and you're what? Hey guys, let's just make sure those are bad people. And we have to hide here in our church. Okay? I understand that. But I don't think God ever wanted us to be scared. We need to be ready so we can impact the people around us in our communities. Not be afraid of them. Not hide from them. No one in history ever were hiding from the society around them. Like someone is telling me that we should get off Facebook, get off YouTube, and get on Facebook and GodTube. That's okay, that's great. I think it's important to be on GodTube and Facebook, and it's probably a smart thing to do. I think it's smart to protect yourself, but not to hide. There's a difference, right? Okay, we can't hide from the community. We have to be able to adapt, to live, to do what St. Paul did in 1 Corinthians 9. I became weak so I can save the weak. I became a Jew to win the Jew. I have to become like them. I have to communicate with them. I can't just hide from them. If you're hiding from everybody, then we'll never win anybody. So I think being oblivious, where I don't know anything, hiding, I think those are not the way. 3, which most of us probably get into a habit of doing, which is criticizing. To be honest with you, I've done this many times. I said, I can't believe the government did that. I can't believe they just passed that law. I can't believe. But I was thinking about something that I want to share with you. It's like, if we continue to criticize everything around us, how can we love the people around us? We're too busy judging and criticizing. Can't win anybody. When we see them, automatically, you may not admit this, automatically we're judging everybody around us. But I don't think that's going to win. So I think this is a fail also. Let's go to number 4. Let's see. So these 3 are fails. 4 and 5 are the ways we need to go. Embrace people and offer an alternative. I said this yesterday. We have to embrace the people in the culture. Build relationships with people, build bridges with the people in the culture. And offer them a better way. Our church has the better way. Why should we hide from people if we have the answer? We should embrace, love, build bridges, and offer a better way. We have the better way. What are we hiding from? You have the cure. Why not give it to someone? Believe it or not, in Africa, when I teach people about the prayer book of Legbeya, or confessions, or what the meaning of communion, they love it more than we do. You know? I find that the fathers and the servants, they love the liturgies, and they love the prayer books, and they love, they're excited. One father said, I used to hate Tasbih, but when we learned it and learned it, it's so beautiful. We love it. It makes me praise like I'm in heaven. I love to see that because, like, we have so many beautiful things. You know, we should embrace others and give them alternative. Like, you know, for example, I'll give you like the way our church is very clear and conservative about, you know, premarital relations. We have a better way. Why should we be sacred before marriage? Why should we? And I think that the environment now, that's impossible, right? If you ask someone to wait before marriage, it's impossible to see in our communities these days. And believe it or not, our church young youth are jumping on board for that. But we have a better way. If we look, here's the thing. I want you to be clear about this. If we hide, or we're oblivious, or we judge, our children, our brothers and sisters, will run to those options. But if we embrace and give a better way, then our children, our brothers and sisters, will learn there's a better way. They can see that their church is not hiding, but running to it, and facing it, and dealing with it, and working through it. When they see that, they'll know that we have the better way. But if they see us running and hiding and being oblivious or always criticizing, they may be running, we might be pushing them towards that same place we want to protect our church, our members.
I just have a question.
Sure, Father.
Related to what your reverend was saying about Zambia and how...
It's a great question. I think that the main thing is that we should, again, preserve the faith and not water it down. Like, I didn't say don't do the greater prayer or don't do liturgy. But also, at the same time, to be honest, Father, like, that same Father, he loves the instruments of drums. Like, we have Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Zambians. All of them use drums. And we don't. I can't tell you, don't use drums because we use cymbals. No. You use the drums, you're not changing the faith. So I think that if it's affecting the faith or watering down the faith, no. We have to hold our... Because what we have is a better option. It's a better alternative. But at the same time, how we communicate with people is a problem. We try to shove it down their throat. You must be the way, and you must do that, and you must... Like, we have to start where they are and take them step by step. And if anything hits the line of this is culture and this is faith, we need to have an open discussion. Like, here's my problem, is that we already shut down any idea that we're not used to. That's wrong. We have to say, this is culture, this is faith, let's have a discussion. If we do that, I'm okay. If we don't do that, it's going to be hard to win the people that we go to. Okay? If we go to another place and we're just so tough and so hard on the things that are, like for example, the Ethiopians and Eritreans. I'm sure you know, when they enter the church, they have to make sure what?
The shoes.
Shoes off. You can't go in the church, so we don't do that. That's into the altar. Okay, so these things, we can't force, and they can't force us about shoes. Okay, that has nothing to do with the faith. So I think we need to, look, here's the thing. There's a gray area on some of them, but this is the faith. This is our culture, and we need to understand and discuss these two things. Now, here's the thing. We may think that this cultural thing is faith.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get into different problems. So I'm not saying either side is right or wrong. Don't understand that way. And all I want is us to have discussions about it. And to be open to talk about it. Not to water down any faith. It's a beautiful faith. But to understand the beauty in that culture there. That culture has something beautiful that we don't have. Understand that culture, And not to be oblivious, not to hide from it, not to criticize it, but embrace the people and offer them an altar. Yes, you want to say something?
So I love my church, but my question is, as a servant, if, for example, like my home church does kind of tend to do 1 and 2 and 3 on the list, what's the most I can do as a servant? Like, I don't think I have the power to be able to change the way things are, or to add drums into my liturgy, or to do anything.
But that's not our culture here, right?
Yeah. Just as an example, like I don't.
I don't want you to say because we're doing it in Zambia, you're going to add drums here.
Yes,
The bishops will kill me today. So don't add any drums to your liturgy. You're fine.
but just to, like, what are the things that I can do as a servant, even if I do have friends from school or friends from work that I want to bring to my church, like if I'm doing my best to be open and accepting and all of that, if I bring them to a church that doesn't have that same environment.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, that's why we're here today, for this group to start conversations with our leaders in the church. And here's what I want you to know. I'm going to talk about this in one of the later talks about changing the mindset, is that we have to be patient. Because we can do number 3 in reverse. We can criticize, oh, my church is not doing that thing, we failed again. Look, we have to we're one. Remember the verse from the beginning. Jew or Greek, we're one. Male or female, we're one. If there's a culture in the church that does something that you don't like, we don't do number 3. We humbly approach. We listen, we talk, we start conversations. And I've seen, to be honest with you, the North American bishops continuously change some of the things that I thought they would never change. Because they realize how much we need to win the people. So I applaud that. I'm happy to see that. But I just don't want us to say, this is how it is. Let them get up. We can't be so stringent. And we need to listen to each other. Like John was saying yesterday, we need to listen to each other and talk with each other and discuss it. So maybe today it's not happening. But let's start those conversations. Let's discuss with them. And if it doesn't happen right away, don't be upset. It will happen. Just be patient. Don't go. But be humble and don't be upset and don't be like attacking. Don't attack. But I pray that those of you who are here, fathers, servants, normal lay people, whoever, let's give a chance to have these conversations. Don't be so strict to shut down people around you. From both sides. We have to open it and it'll come. Yes?
Are we going to have an open time where we can air out these questions and things with our fathers?
I think it's right after this. I'm prepping you for this to be ready.
Because there are some things that, coming from a different culture, like I am Syriani, original. I adapted to the Coptic Church. And there are some things that I see that's maybe, to me, after 20 years with the Coptic Church, I see it's very unnecessary. And some of them do bother me because when you say in the prayer, let's say the Ekbia, you guys do it quickly. Because you're used to it since you were babies. And when you're doing it too quickly, I lose my place and cannot follow with you people. And that bothers me because I love the prayers,
Yeah.
I love the mass, I love everything about the Coptic Church. But I'm getting lost.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to discuss. Do we have any?
Yeah, we'll have time for that. And what I want to say about this comment is this: no one feel offended during that discussion forum.
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay? This is a chance to discuss and open your heart, and we'll get somewhere together. So thank you for that. Let me finish, and then I'll ask the fathers and
Thank you.
our bishops to continue with us on that. Okay, let's go to the last one. Now, embracing people and offering alternatives. Now, this is the ultimate one. Use the culture to reach culture. That's where we need to get to. Use the culture to reach culture. This is the ultimate bridge to reaching and saving people and serving people. This means it's not changing what we say, but how we say it. Not changing what we believe, but the way we express what we believe. Example. You probably heard all your life, less social media. What I would say is use more social media. Use culture to reach culture, but use it in a way to win people, right? Use social media. Everyone says, no, be off social media, be off social media. I actually say the opposite. I'm not even on social media, by the way. I don't have Facebook, but learning and preparing, I realized something, that the ultimate is using culture to reach culture. Meaning, like, if the culture is that everyone is on social media, use that avenue. So find a way within the culture to make an impact. Use the same culture that you wanted to repel against, and you wanted to criticize against, and you wanted to hide from, and you wanted to say, I don't know anything about it. When we do 1, 2, and 3, we'll never use the same culture that we're adapting to reach the people in that culture. That's evangelism, that's mission. If we're always hiding and oblivious, I don't know anything, and I criticize that, if we're always doing that, we're never going to reach anybody. We can just leave it as just a nice conference, we did thank you for coming, and glory be to God, and go home and do nothing. We have to be able to do number 4 and 5. We have to embrace and build bridges and build relationships so we can have we can give them the alternative. But not be so strict saying it has to be like this right now. We have to look from their eyes. We have to contextualize. We have to know what they're seeing. You're seeing something, they're seeing something different. Use the culture to reach culture. There's so many examples I'm sure you can come up with, but this is the ultimate. Number 5 is the ultimate way to reach and to serve. Fail, 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 pass, ultimate. Those are just 5 small examples of how to adapt and reach the host culture without losing your morals. We're not here to lose that. Okay? Remember this verse. There is neither Jew. Can we say it together? Let's say it together, please. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female. For we are all one in Christ Jesus. Culture can be a way to learn about each other, not dividing. We want to build bridges, not barriers. Remember that. Bridges connect, not divide. Please, I'm asking as we conclude right now, please, I'm begging you, never, ever make any group in the church feel rejected. Please, I'm going to say it again. Never, ever make any group in the church feel rejected. When you see someone different than you, learn about their behaviors, their ways, their handshakes, their food, their situations, sports and art and whatever. Learn about it, celebrate it, adapt to the good parts of it. Use culture to embrace the people, build bridges. But at the end, we're responsible for these 3 things. Please. We don't want to reject anybody. I know how it feels to be rejected. When I came to church, that time in the beginning, I was rejected. I was different. I was coming from university, didn't know anything. Because I didn't know anything, people made me feel bad. Don't make anybody feel bad. Celebrate, talk to them, walk with them, connect with them. And we pray that we can win. Save some, as St. Paul said. Save some. The worst feeling I'm sure you've ever had in your life is feeling rejected. That's what we may be doing to people who want to come to God. We have a better alternative. Let's pray so we can save some. Glory be to God forever. Amen. Any questions before we go on? Any questions? Yes.
Abuna, I'm adding more to what Mag is saying. We do have more than one culture inside the church, like you said before. We have the father and the son, or the grandfather and the grandson cultures, and each one of them wanted their own way. So Egyptians are actually going to church to find Egypt, or the immigrated Egyptians are going to church to find Egypt, while the younger ones are going there to, whatever the reason may be, find friends or find Christ and so on and so forth. All is going for Christ, ultimately. But how do you tailor in one church to the two cultures that are within to make them one?
Yeah.
And that's going to take effort by the leadership and all of you. Okay? It's a vision that we need to project into our churches. That this culture is good, this culture is good. We embrace this culture, we embrace this culture. We like this about this culture, we like this, we're enjoying, but it's something that we need to, like, that's why we're here. Leadership, servants, we have to go back and have these conversations as a vision, as part of our vision of the church. It's okay, let many people come to immigrate, we enjoy that. The more the better, but they should know when they come, they're walking into a church that has a vision that we celebrate the Egyptian culture and we celebrate the American culture and both go together as one. It has to be discussed. We can't just say the church is open, people coming in and just go and take attend liturgy and take communion. We have to discuss and plant the vision of the church over and over and over and over again. So everybody in the church knows. The Egyptians coming on immigration. The Americans who are there, they know, hey, we love each other. We are different, but we love each other. We are one. And if we have Chinese or Japanese or any needs coming in, it's going to be, we celebrate, we love them, we welcome them. And if our churches are ready, and I think in the discussion groups, Eric was saying we'll have more of these, the discussion groups about this, but the churches need to be ready to handle both. And the way is, we need to discuss it. We need to have conversation. We need to have the leaders stand up in the church and say, here's what we believe. If the leaders don't stand up and say, here's what we believe, it's just going to be people coming into church, people coming out, and we're going to miss so many people. So many people are going to be lost and disconnected. We talk about it, we have vision about it, and we cast vision about it, and we let everyone in the church know we're together. And we celebrate this culture, and we celebrate this culture. And we work together. So it just needs to be, if you don't talk about something, then it just happens, right? We can't do that. That's the old days. We're at a stage of the church where we need to discuss everything openly, and the leaders need to project the vision of the church. Okay? Yes? Yeah, you guys get the question, right? Is the goal to make these American Orthodox churches, but does all the churches should be doing the same thing, or should we just focus on the American churches doing that? I believe, and this is something I really believe wholeheartedly, is that every church is a mission church. Every Christian is a missionary, and everywhere we go, our churches should be with this vision. Now, it's going to be easier in the American Orthodox churches to probably do some of these things. But it doesn't cancel the other churches from doing them. Does that make sense? We're a global church. So I think that it's a good step that the American Orthodox churches and the missionary churches are helping us get there quicker. But it doesn't give the rest of us in the other churches a cancellation. No, they're doing that. We don't need to. We all need to do that. We all need to do this. Does that make sense? Every church that someone walks into should be a church that we are welcomed, we're celebrating all cultures, and we should see that the church is ready for any person who comes into the church, where it's not a church, right? Like, how can any church not welcome? Like, someone walks in there from different cultures, they should be welcome, Egyptian, American, whatever culture. So every church should be like that, or it's not a church. Now, it is more difficult to do that in our traditional churches, but our traditional churches, our American missionary churches, all should be shooting for the same vision. This is my opinion, fathers and graces can say differently, but every church is a mission church. Some are going to be easier, some are not. But all of us have to have the same goal. Okay? Any final questions before we break it up into groups to discuss this more? Okay. Okay, Nina, and then last one. Is that okay, Eric?
Yeah, so I mean, the next one is going to be same format. Actually.
Same, okay.
It'll be a big group, and since we have so many of the fathers with us and their graces are here, we're going to allow all this conversation to come forth, and you guys can ask all these questions. I know this is a big topic
Yeah.
we've been talking about for years, so this is the platform that you have an opportunity to express what you're feeling in your own churches, and you can bring them to the forefront so everyone knows, and we can all share together. So
we can maybe take the one more question, but hopefully we can hold our questions for the discussion group. We're going to bring in coffee from Starbucks and everything. So everyone, we can meet back here at 12:15, and we can start that as well after Father's Day.
Okay, so last question. Lena, you can go ahead.
So in some churches, like the Coptic language, like you mentioned earlier, something about like catering to one culture, but like not on the expense of your own, and you need to know your own culture. So I was just wanting your opinion about like eliminating the Coptic language in some of the churches, because I think like maybe in the future, like the children who would grow up, the Coptic children who are growing up in the churches without the Coptic language, like I think the gap is just growing between like Copts, you know, and I don't know if like the language has anything to do with it. And so
I'll give you my opinion, and we'll hear from the bishops, of course, and the fathers. But here's my opinion: is that we don't have to get rid of the Coptic language. But here's what I do in Zambia: is that Wednesday I have an all Zambian Nyanza liturgy. On Friday I have all Coptic Arabic, some English because I'm very bad in Arabic, liturgy. And on Sunday it's universal. And all those different groups come together and we celebrate. I think the Sunday liturgy should be of the language of the land that you're in. The main liturgy. You can have another liturgy in that same church, but the main liturgy, if you want to, look, what I'm saying today is where we need to get to. If it's not there, don't criticize your churches. If anybody here criticizes their churches, you've lost what we talked about today. We need to, Sunday, for all of our churches, traditional and American Orthodox, should be the main liturgy to be mainly English. That should be done by now. We should not be talking about that anymore. Now, the other weekday liturgies and a Saturday morning liturgy or another liturgy on Sunday, that can be a variety. But the main one should be all focused on your one. Because that's like if it's like whatever, we go to China, it needs to be the same. If we go to wherever we go, we should cater towards that. That's still, we didn't change the faith. We're still preserving the faith. Okay, so let's pray about that. But I don't think removing Coptic is like, oh, we need to stop Coptic altogether. I don't think, like, we're saying things in extreme formats, right? Either we do this or we do that. No, there might be a good middle option, a moderate option. Like, we can have this, we can have this, we can have this, but the main one to welcome new people has to be the language of this land. Okay? The sermons on Sunday should be catered towards the newcomer coming into the church. Okay? We have to remember that. Sermons, liturgy, everything, so we can win. Now, what I'm saying may be something that we're getting to, and it's going to come, and don't be upset if it's not there now, but I can see that's where the leaders of the church are going towards. Okay? Okay, I hope that helps. So I think we're done with this part of the thing. Thank you very much, and we'll hear from Eric.
So it's right now it's 11:45. So maybe we'll meet back here in about 15 minutes. We'll have some coffee, and then we'll start our group discussion 50 minutes after that. So bring your questions, bring your experiences, and we can share it together as a group, by the way.